Okay, so Yolanda asked me to teach this today. This is what I've been studying. I said this, you heard that. It's by Kathleen Edelman. And I've actually, the Lord brought it to my attention a few months ago, several months ago, when I was calling Yolanda typically, like, what do I do with these children? You're the one with all the child psychology stuff. And she was like, well, look into this. Her daughter-in-law had studied it. And it was a super practical way for them to just get past some obstacles in just communicating. So I started studying it, and honestly, I started it and put it down because I just couldn't get into it. And I don't know if it was timing or stubbornness. I don't know what it was. But it came to a point one day where I was like, okay, where's that book? Now it's time. And so I got it out, and once I really embraced it, I saw that it's a super, very practical, easy tool for us to use in the body of Christ. And as with everything else that I do, I start with a super practical thing to do in my everyday life, and then it's like this big mushroom cloud that expands over the whole world, and I can see it being applied in politics and medicine, and I can just see it everywhere. So I don't know what part of that you might pick up or let go of, but that's just my heart, and I really do have a passion. I'm still learning it. This lady's been teaching it for 30 years. So I'm actually still learning it as well. I'm only about 4 or 5 months into it. But I know more than y'all, so
Yeah, you do.
that gives me a little bit of confidence. But you're going to see after we talk about it how you don't really need the test to know what we're going to talk about. I really, like I was telling you, I just did it as proof. So you can't say, oh, that's just your opinion. You took the test, you got the results. I'll tell you what they mean, okay? So what we're studying is temperaments. And according to Kathleen Edelman, this goes back over 2,500 years ago. It goes back to Greek medicine, and they studied it. Originally, what they did, it was Hippocrates. They studied it, and they thought that each of the temperaments were related to one of your body fluids, whether it was blood or phlegm or bile. I'm sure there's probably a connection somewhere. Not sure what that connection is. But they eventually, over time, kind of dropped the whole fluid parts of your body thing, and they continued studying temperaments, but it moved toward the psychological realm. So it moved into psychology instead of the medical realm. But of course, we know that we are 3 parts, soul, spirit, and body, so those do work together. I personally am not going to get into how they could work together today. I'm just going to teach you this and what I know. So a temperament basically is like your personality. Our personality is how we respond or how we act outwardly to the world, what's inside of us. A temperament is like the why. Why do we act that way? It's, according to her and the researchers, they say it's innate. It's something that we're born with. It does not change with situations like our personality does. One of the word pictures she gives is, think of yourself in high school and your personality then versus your personality now. Your personality in high school changed.
Thank God.
Because of experience and wisdom and those things, but really the why behind how we act probably didn't. If it's really our temperament, and this research is true, which I really do believe that it is for the most part. So that's what a temperament is. It should be something that is the same across the boards. It should be the same at your house versus here. And I will tell you that it might change our personality a little bit. The situation might change our personality a little bit, but the real deep innate part of us will not change, and you'll see it as we go along. Why should we study it? I can think of a million reasons. We will be able to understand ourselves better. God says that He knit us together. I don't think we've learned we have spiritual gifts. We have redemptive gifts. We obviously have personalities. We have soul, spirit, body. We have all these gifts and layers. So God didn't create us just one person and we're going to get it when we're born and that's how we're going to be. We can study and learn our whole lives and sort of refine how God made us if we're willing to open up and really see not only our weaknesses but our strengths and just own them. And so one thing she says in studying this is that we can shrink the gray. I love that term. And so we learn our temperaments, and what this whole book, this whole study is about is how we communicate them with one another, how we understand one another, and how we communicate back. And shrinking the gray, she says, is the difference between what someone says and what someone else hears. This area in between is the gray. And if we understand one another, we can kind of come to a place where we're on the same page. And of course, when I first started learning this, I was like, oh, that's why so many people read the Bible and hear it differently.
Yes.
One of the reasons. I don't think it's the only reason. But you can hear one scripture and you're like, I love that. And somebody else is like,
Arguing
that
with
kinda
someone and you're both saying the same
triggers
thing.
me. You know what I mean? And so I think this is part of why that happens. But I don't think it's wrong. None of these things that we're going to talk about are wrong. Everybody is different. God made us different. Our fingerprints different. He knows the hairs on our head. That's all different, but it's all good, and we work together as a body. So that's according to the book and the research. According to Joie, some of the reasons I think we should study this, and I think this is good timing. And when Yolanda asked if I would share today, I was like, ooh, can I teach the colors? And right as I was sending her the text back, she was responding to me, good, teach the colors, give the test. So we were on the same page, and it's just because that's where I am, so I didn't have to think much about what else to do. But some of the reasons I think it's good for the body at this time is that we are in an age or a season where we're getting so much information and download from the Lord. I mean, we're getting revelation after revelation. Some people are going deep and fighting the creatures, and some people are up here in the heavens, and, there's all this stuff. Well, it's hard to understand one another sometimes. It's hard to embrace each other's gifts, each other's callings, each other's places in life. But this will help us sort of bridge that divide, I think. That's one of the things I feel like. Another reason I think it's super important is I feel like we're in this political season of debate. Everybody wants to prove the other one wrong. If you're this, then I'm going to prove why you're wrong. And if you're this, I'm going to talk about how you say it wrong and that's wrong, and you're not a Christian because you say it wrong. And but what if we chose, instead of debating others and finding their faults, what if we chose to see why they're coming from that point of view, why they're speaking the way they're speaking, and we choose to honor their strengths instead of recognizing their weaknesses as their temperament or as their personality. Mm-hmm. Lots of people are walking in their weaknesses because they are constantly being triggered by someone else. And when we're walking in our weaknesses, even those who are not God's, they haven't chosen Jesus. He still created them. Mm-hmm. And they're walking in something he didn't create. But what if we can help pull them up to a place where they begin to be who God created them to be? Mm-hmm. Just by using words that would build them up and not tear them down. So that's another one, a reason for me. The body itself is divided, not even the world. The body is, even this church, I'm sure we don't have complaints. I don't know of any, but I'm sure we do somewhere. Yolanda's mean. Or her words are harsh. Or the music is just not right. Or the children's teacher, she's just kind of rude to the children. There are lots of people who have those things, but what if it's not what they're saying as much as how they're receiving those words? Mm-hmm. So that's another reason I think this is super important. And then also, it'll increase our capacity to love people more, like Jesus says. Mm-hmm. So, Kathleen Nettleman, her foundation for this comes from Ephesians. And it's Ephesians 4:29. That's really what she bases this teaching on. She said she remembers as a young child how words affected her and how it really got her attention. And so Ephesians 4:29 says, and this is the Passion, and never let ugly or hateful words come from your mouth. We could stop right there and I'll be super convicted probably. I know I can be. But instead, let your words become beautiful gifts that encourage others. Do this by speaking words of grace to help them. So that's the foundation of this teaching, according to her. As I read it, I love that. I think our words are important. I agree with it. But my heart is love. And I think we all want to have a heart that's love. I'm not saying I'm there, but several years ago as a new Christian, I was teaching at a Christian school, and John 15:13 was their scripture. And when I read it to them, my heart, I felt like it was going to explode. I was like, what is this? Because I'm not going to die for someone. John 15:13 says, for the greatest love of all is a love that sacrifices all. And this great love is demonstrated when a person sacrifices his life for his friends. Well, I held that verse for a long, long time because there is nobody I could see in my life that I wanted to die for. You know? Why would this be my life verse if I'm not going to die? I can't die more than once, you know? And who would I do that for? So I held it for a long time, and then the Lord showed me, well, it's not always just a physical death. You know, there's more to it. And I know a lot of people already understood that, but I was still struggling because it was something that was sort of growing inside of me. And so as I read this, over and over throughout the years and all of that, I began to look up what the words mean, and really, it's lay down your soul for your friends when you see the difference. And if you lay down your soul, a lot of people back in the day, I don't know if they still use this term, they would say die to self, or your self-will. Die to your self-will to serve others. And that still didn't set right with me. But as I studied it and as I go through life, it seems like everything I study goes back to this. And so that's sort of how I heard her. She said this, and this is how I processed it. And then the other part of my scriptures that have really been in my heart over the years are in Colossians. So Colossians 3, starting with verse 12, really. It says, you are always and dearly loved by God, so robe yourself with virtues of God, since you've been divinely chosen to be holy, set apart, right? Be merciful as you endeavor to understand others. Be compassionate, showing kindness toward all. Be gentle and humble, unoffendable in your patience with others.
Yes.
Tolerate the weaknesses of those in the family of faith, forgiving one another in the same way you've been graciously forgiven by Jesus Christ. If you find fault, these are the words I've underlined over time, not today. If you find fault with someone, release the same gift of forgiveness to them. For love is supreme and must flow through each of these virtues. Love becomes the mark of true maturity. And then if you skip down to verse 17, it says, let every activity of your lives and every word that comes from your lips be drenched with the beauty of the Lord Jesus Christ, the Anointed One, and bring your constant praise to God the Father because of what Christ has done for you. And just those few verses alone, when I read this study, I was like, okay, that's all I needed. Because everything we do and every word we speak is that important to Father. So our words are powerful, and every word we use is a word that we choose. And we can either choose to bring life or death. Every time we open our mouths, we have the opportunity to shape someone's life for the better. So as I was saying before, we know a lot about the body, soul, and spirit. We're learning a ton about gifts and all kinds of things. But today we're talking about temperaments. I'm not going into any deeper levels because I think you can study it and connect some dots on your own, because there's always layers. And sometimes we respond in our soul and we're not completely moving by our spirit yet, so that's something else we have to work through. But I'm not addressing those things today. This is pretty practical. So to start with, everybody turn your sheets over. You'll see your squares. Put a little star by your top one if you want, or label them 1, 2, 3, 4, however you want to do it to kind of let yourself
You
know.
have 2 equal ones. What's that?
You're bilingual.
1, 2, 3, and 3.
You get to vote.
Are they 1, 1, 2, 2, 3?
1 and 4. 1.
So put them in, yeah, just put them in whatever order. It's okay. Okay, so when you look at your sheet, you see 4 squares, and they're divided really top and bottom, and then left and right sides. At the very top, those two, the yellow and red, are extroverts. Now, when I mean extroverts, I don't mean like outgoing and have to be around people. The definition she is for extroverts on this one is that they process their thoughts and feelings externally. So extrovert in this case is talking about your thoughts and feelings. You process them externally, which basically means you think out loud, or you think by speaking. Some people say you talk it out.
Could also write it out,
Yeah,
couldn't you?
I would
That's
think
external.
so. Yeah, maybe. That could also be a way of internal processing too, though. I don't know. That's deeper than I'm there. I'm not there yet. So introverts then are the opposite. They process their thoughts and feelings internally, or they think before speaking, or you could say they think it out instead of talk it out.
So, are you saying those bottom squares are an introvert?
Uh-huh.
The tops are extroverts?
Yes.
I've got equal in each one.
Yeah, that's okay.
Nice mix.
That's good.
Even keel.
Introverts today. So on the left side are the people-oriented. That means that people-oriented folks prioritize connections and relationships.
Prioritize what? Relationship?
Connections and relationships. And task-oriented, they prioritize accomplishments. In other words, they get things done. You were okay. It's all good.
After 43 years, we're in complete opposites everywhere.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Every language, or every color, or every temperament speaks a language. And they sound like this. I'll give you some examples. You can tell me which one you think it is. If you hear someone saying, "Come on, let's go, it's going to be great." Or, "Oh, I'm sure it's going to work out for the best." Or, "I've got a story to tell you." They're people-oriented. You're right. Are they extroverts or introverts? Extroverts. So that's yellow or sanguine. And those actually, yellows actually speak the language of people and fun. They're great storytellers. They're the ones in class you have to tell to be quiet. Okay, so here's the next one. And I'll just tell you, it's red. We'll just get to the chase here. We're running out of time. So red speaks the language of power and control. They limit small talk and just cut to the chase. Blues speak the language of perfection and order. And greens speak the language of calm and harmony. Very much so.
I'm happy.
You're what?
People in and fun.
I'm a green.
I'm a yellow. I'm people and fun.
Yeah, I'm a green yellow. So green's my high and
That's the
yellow's
same
a
thing I
close.
am.
Are
Yellow
you?
and green.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Am I
your green
equal?
is your high and what's your yellow?
Yellow.
I guessed on everyone.
Oh, you did? I
Yeah.
figured somebody would.
I'll put you in the yellow.
You
Oh,
are
you did?
such a teacher.
Linnell, put you in the yellow.
Duh. So observant of you.
Okay, so every
It's
one of us
perfection.
have innate needs. Things that we need, we're just wired to need. It doesn't have to be exactly these words, but words that speak these languages. So as far as the yellow or the sanguine, the innate needs for the sanguine on the left side are approval, acceptance, attention, and affection.
Those are the needs, right?
Those are the innate needs. If those needs are not filled, we talk about our love tank. If the needs are not filled or we're running low on them, our body has signals and we actually can start to manipulate. It's not planned. We don't do it on purpose. With what she calls signals. But we start to manipulate with one of our weaknesses. Our weaknesses sort of rise up because our strengths feel like they're lacking a little bit. And so for the sanguine, the things that we signal or we manipulate with is our charm and flattery. And an example would be a child that's like, oh, you look so pretty today. Can we go outside and play? You've heard it. I've probably said it to my husband. Hi, honey. Can we go on vacation? You're such a hard worker. Can
You
we
need
go
a
on
break.
vacation?
Let's go boating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so for the choleric or the red, those folks need loyalty, sense of control. It doesn't say control, sense of control. Appreciation. And credit for work. If those innate needs are not filled, if they're lacking in some way, and I'm not saying someone else has to fill them, we'll talk about that in a minute, but if you're lacking in any of those areas as a choleric person, you manipulate with tone and volume. Are we agreeing so far or disagreeing?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So the first one, charm, and what was the other?
Flattery. So if you are phlegmatic or green, your innate needs speak in these 4 areas: harmony, feeling of worth, lack of stress, and the 4th one is respect. If those needs are lacking, then the signals tend to be procrastination or stubbornness. And or. If you are melancholic or blue, the innate needs are safety, sensitivity, support, and the last one is space and silence.
Space and silence.
Silent. Space and silence. And the melancholic, if they're not filled, their innate needs, then they tend to signal with moods or silence, which that's one of their needs and one of their signals.
Interesting.
Isn't it interesting? Okay, so as we read through them, I'm just going to just share a few little things. Actually, I'm going to give you one of these. Now that you've done this. We all have needs or weaknesses and strengths.
I apologize, I wrote on the last.
That's okay. I can
White
pick
out
them
will
up.
fix that. But now you know where I am.
It doesn't matter. We're going to talk. Everybody probably knows.
Oh, like I needed to. Everybody already
Okay,
knows
but let's
me.
go back to, you can't use that as an excuse now.
No, you can't. Not yet. Not yet.
Oh my gosh.
You can keep it if you want.
No, I don't really want to keep it, but you can white out this.
That's
number.
okay.
Okay.
That's okay. It's not a
Okay.
big deal. I just was, trying not to have to
That's
print them all again.
helpful.
So
You wouldn't get that from the perfection order people.
okay, you see your strengths and weaknesses. Look at your list. And just kind of go through there. You can write on this. This is yours to keep if you want. What I did is I put a little check mark, or I circled the ones that I feel like I walk in consistently. Strengths and weaknesses. To just give yourself an idea, are you walking more in your strengths or are you walking more in your weaknesses? And it's not wrong. These are not wrong. We are all different. God made us different. Sometimes we don't have the strategies or the understanding of how to build ourselves up. And if we start looking at our strengths and weaknesses, we can see if we're top heavy, or if we're flipped. And then I'm going to give you some strategies to help yourself, because the weaknesses are not like we think. We think, oh, I'm weak, I'm bad, I did wrong. The weaknesses are not like that. The weaknesses are like your gas tank signal on your car. They're saying, hey, you have innate needs that are not being met, that are not being filled. And it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It means that we need to focus on pouring into the needs so the weakness they'll stop triggering. And so, as you look at the strengths and the weaknesses, I want to talk to you about one particular thing, and then I'm going to give you another worksheet. Or a handout you can take with you. This is quick. This is like the cliff notes of 6 weeks of, this class. The reason I'm telling you this, though, and the reason I think Yolanda has seen it being effective, not only with me and the children and in our family and in our home, is that when you know you and you know these different temperaments, you know someone else. So think about the relationship that you have the biggest conflict in. It could be political. It could be when you come to church and have to listen. It could be with a teacher. It could be with a friend. It could be with a spouse. And if you'll look at your strengths and weaknesses as well as theirs, you can probably see right away what's going on. It's probably that you have a weakness where they have a strength. And that's, causing you to fight against one another. And a lot of times what we think is someone else is wrong. You're wrong. You're never going to change. You're going to be that way forever. That's the way you've always been. Well, what we're doing is we're seeing their weakness and we're assuming that that's how they are when really they have an innate need that needs to be filled as well. And if we're constantly saying something to them that's triggering, it's almost like causing their weakness to get stronger and stronger instead of their strength. So I'm going to give you an example. Personally, my kids love it when I give personal examples. They think it's awesome. So I have a blue child, only one, thank God, because he and I are pretty opposite. I want to talk it out. I want to know everything's okay. I want to express it. And especially as a mom, when you have children, well, he comes home from school and he goes straight up to his room. He has to be there for a while. and I think something's wrong. You just come home from school, you don't want to talk about it. Is it bad? What happened? You know, all the stuff. And I go up and I'm like, oh, how was school? Good. Is everything okay? Yep. Something wrong? Nope. Well, why are you in your room? I need to rest, Mom. I'm like, well, that tone tells me something's wrong. Well, there is something wrong. It's the fact that I'm sitting there talking to him. And he doesn't want to be talked to because he's a blue and he needs space and silence and he needs me to leave him alone and trust that he's fine because he doesn't need to be around people at that moment.
Wow.
And if he stays in his room for a few hours, which I think is way too long, he'll come down and he's fine. But if I drag him out of that space too soon, it's like, ugh. I can't even go to my room and rest. There's no peace in this house. And then I get that whole, somebody's always pestering me. And I'm like, I did not pester you for 2 hours. And all I did was ask you a question. That is not pestering. And so this is the exchange we've had probably for his entire life until 6 months ago. And guess what? He became irritable during that time. He became judgmental. And if you look at the blues, the weaknesses are moody, insecure, guarded, holds back affection. I mean, he wouldn't even hardly hug me. It wasn't because he was mad at me. It was just something in his weakness that was sort of rearing up a little bit, you know, critical of others. Oh my goodness, I could do nothing right. If we change the plans, of course we're going to go do something. I just got laid down. I just got sat down and now we're going to go do something. Well, when I started reading this, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm pushing my poor kid into despair here. So when I started seeing what does a blue person need, and I have a list of that for you too. What do they need? What can we do to help them? Some of the things that you should not say to a blue person is, it's going to be fine, don't worry. Or, come on, let's go somewhere. I know you're resting, but get up, you can rest later. They hate that stuff. They just need their space. If you need something, all you have to do is ask. Well, the blues aren't really talkative, so they don't ask because they just think about it and they need their space and silence and they need order and they'll figure it out. This kid of mine has his room in order. I never have to tell him to clean his room. He has everything where it should be. He can build stuff and has all his supplies in order. Like, he's got it, right? But I was killing him with my words a little bit. Not even on purpose, just by being me and not taking into consideration him. So that's an example of that. My husband and I have a story upon story. Not going to share those. Those probably are a little too personal. But what we can do with this in understanding us is we start to understand other people. And the way we understand other people is we think about it. We don't have to give them a test. You've already got us all pegged. We didn't take the test. You didn't see our test results. But you have us because you're understanding what each one of them are and what they say, how they speak, how they live. And so once we do that, we're able to build people up instead of tear them down. One way we can identify other people is we can ask ourselves a few questions. What are they like on a good day? What do they operate in on a good day? Not when they're struggling, when they're having a really good day. What are they like? Are they fun and want to be around people? Are they leading a team and encouraging and motivating people? Are they calm and restful and just bringing peace into the home? Do they have order? Are they protecting? And then think about what they do on a really hard day. My husband's red, in case y'all didn't know that. When he's having a really rough day at work, his words are hurting people. He wants stuff done. He wants it done now. And he doesn't have time to talk about it because he's on a tight schedule and there's a lot to do. He's not meaning to hurt people. People will say, that was mean, that was hurtful. And he's like, well, I didn't mean to hurt you. I just need it done. In his heart, he really is not trying to hurt someone. Mm-hmm. He just needs it done. And that's what reds do when they get stressed or when they function in their weakness. They kind of forget that people have hearts and people have feelings, and they just spout off orders. So you think about what they're like on a good day, what they're like on a rough day, and then also, how do they talk? What words come out of their mouth? Do they want to be around people? Do they want to be by themselves? Do they want to have fun? Or do they just want to chill and go to their room? And then, what are their tendencies? What do they do? Internal, external, people, tasks. If you think of those 4 things, you can pretty much understand someone else's temperament. Children are a little harder. I have a few little sheets for them that I kind of follow. I don't have to give them a test. And it's real simple. Are they playing with other kids when they come in? Or do they want to go sit by themselves? Or they're by themselves, do they talk and sing? You know, are they happy, kind of outspoken? Or are they just real reserved and don't want to answer? And those help us to understand their temperaments. And in understanding one another's temperaments, we can do just what the Word said. We can use our words to build one another up, to help one another. And also to see where we have needs that are not being met and work on those. That's like super fast. Super fast. As we learn these, there are 4 things that she really mentions that we go through when we're learning our temperaments. And the first one is acceptance. A lot of times we look at our results and we're either, oh, I'm such a bad person. I can't believe I'm like this. Or we don't believe it and we want to retake the test a couple times. That was me. Or we just don't believe she knows what she's talking about, or that it doesn't matter. But once we decide that we're going to accept the results, we're basically saying, God, I accept who you made me to be. I know I have strengths and weaknesses, but I love me, and I love me enough to be who you've called me to be. I love myself enough to walk in me authentically, not to use it as an excuse. You know, I don't like that. I don't want to be in charge. I'm not a red. I'm not a this. I'm not a greens are really, you know, high. Good leaders do, of course. We all are good leaders at times. But instead of using it as an excuse, we learn to love who we are, and we learn other people's language or their temperament so that we can interact with them, and we can build them up, and we can become better. I always think of those Republican ladies or those meetings we go to at times, which I don't go anymore, but where people are arguing. You know, somebody has questions and they're this and they're that, and I'm like, man, if we could just get them functioning in their strength and not attacking one another, they could still express what they needed, but it wouldn't be an attack. And I think we, as Christians, have that ability. I think God gave us that ability, and when we become Christians, we have the authority. Because what we're doing is we're loving them up to their next level. We're loving them into being authentically who God created them to be. I think it could probably help a lot of relationships at home. You know, with our husbands and wives, or not wives, but children. I most certainly think we could do that. And then I also think that we could apply it to the world around us. And when we do, we can shift even when someone else doesn't shift. You know, that's the one thing about knowing the temperaments and somebody else you're talking to doesn't. You're willing to shift the way you talk, and you're like, oh, well, they must be a yellow. They're bubbly, but they're really getting on my nerves because they're bubbly, and I'm not bubbly right now, you know? But we can be thinking about that, and one of the things you can do for a yellow is match their enthusiasm. When they're excited about something, and that's my second one, so I'm there a lot of the time, so I start telling a story and I get excited and start laughing before I ever start. And if somebody's just staring at you, waiting, you're like, just Ellen. But if we match that, then it encourages them, build them up. My 6-year-old's a yellow, and he's learning boundaries with it. Like, you have to read people's body language. Yes, you want to tell your story. I'm super excited about your story, and yes, I want to do that with you, but not everybody's always as excited. Don't take that as rejection. That's not rejection. They just don't understand where you are, and that's okay. That's who they are. And he's learning to read people so he doesn't just go up and tell you his whole life story like he's done in the past. And then the people are like, okay, I gotta go. And it hurts them because they need to go, and it hurts him because he feels rejected. And as yellows, we do feel rejected when we want to talk and somebody doesn't want to listen. And
as yellows, we talk too much.
Sometimes.
This Merkel, just read the weaknesses on yellow. I'm going, ooh.
Okay, so I'll do this real quick before, I know we have to go, time's up, but one of the things we can do, and she has this strategy in her book, and I love it, is that we begin to initiate the pause, is what she calls it. So when someone's talking to you and it starts to hurt, when you're trying to tell a story and they're not paying attention, or when you're doing something and their words are coming at you and they're not landing in a healthy way, we can pause before we respond, and we can think, I tend to overtalk. I tend to be talkative and not allow others in the conversation. But I'm going to allow other people to talk this time. I'm going to pause and let them enter in. So that's just a real simple one, but it's pausing and thinking about how they're wired, why they're talking to us the way they are, and how we can respond in a way that's healthy without being offended or hurt. And that will help us in conversations. I think about the times that people have called, and I'm just using this as an example, Yolanda or any of the really outspoken prophetic or apostolic people, like when they've called them mean or rude or hard, you know what I mean? Hard. And to me, truth is awesome. I don't really care how you say it to me. If it's truth and it sets me free, then you go right ahead. I can handle it. But some people get hurt when those people are not walking in a pastoral way. Oh, darling, you know? And I don't know that they've said it about her, but when people are not like being coddled a little bit, instead of it being, oh, I'll get my needs met, I'll ask God how to do that. It's like an attack toward the leadership. I think we do that with our president. I think we do that with the mayor. I think we do it with a lot of people that we personally listen to that offend us.
Surgery instead of salve.
We blame them instead of saying, oh, wait, what part of that is in me that I need to work on? And another way that she talks about to build our weaknesses is we have a part and God has a part. So if we have this innate desire, let me see if I can use one. She's given several examples. For feeling of worth. And we feel like no one listens to us or no one thinks what we're saying is worthy. One thing she says is, what about journaling? If you journal, then you can journal your feelings. You can and you feel like you've expressed it, and you can feel a sense of accomplishment without without the interaction with someone else. And then obviously also go to God and be like, okay, I feel like this part of my needs, my tank is empty. So what can we do to increase it? What scripture do you have for me? And she actually has scriptures. I mean, I could have passed you out a book. I didn't give you a book. Scriptures that God has just for you, just for your temperament, that speak to that part of you and build you up if you just listen and embrace them. Okay. With all of that, that's all. I feel like that was just like the tip of the iceberg.
It's so good.
But I really think it's something that will motivate you, if you'll pay attention to it, to learn how you're wired and how you can interact with other people in a healthy, happy way that builds them up. Using the scriptures and the others you have in your life. But if you want to know more, she has a plethora of information online that is free. Free. And if you go on YouTube and you just Google her or search for Kathleen Edelman.
And it's said it's you, not or what you heard.
What is it?
What's the book called?
I said this, you heard that.
Okay.
You can look that up on YouTube, or you can look up Edelman is Edelman. She has all kinds, thank you, ma'am, of videos that you can listen to of all 4 temperaments together, adults talking, and it's very convicting, some of it, but it's so good to help with your relationships. And then she even has an app. I said this, you heard that, and it has the videos kind of like in an order for training. I've watched it.
There's nothing more frustrating to me than to be misunderstood.
Yeah.
If I can't make myself known to somebody, or they misread me, that just upsets me.
Yeah.
you know, just think, you don't know me, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, and I know that other people feel that way too, but.
Yeah. And my husband, and I use him as an example, I don't have to cut all this out, but,
Can we do
he
that?
doesn't bother him. And it drives me bananas, and we're opposites. I mean, I'm green, he's red. God does that on purpose. And instead of seeing it as, oh my goodness, we're opposites and we're separate, what it really is we're a team and we have two sets of strengths. If it was just both green,
There you go.
we would only have one set of strengths. But if we're both, we have two sets of strengths and our weaknesses cancel. So basically, we have double strength and no weakness if we're walking in unity.
That's I believe a lot of marriages are like that.
Yeah,
And, you know, they're opposite people. I mean, really, that's a lot like,
yeah,
you know, my husband and I are totally different.
yeah,
But we learned how to, God helped us put that together.
yeah. And if you walk in unity, if you're really walking in oneness, then when you go somewhere, that oneness brings all of those together in the right way. I mean, there have been times that I'm like, Brian, you go do this, I can't do that. I feel like it would hurt their feelings. Well, you're just going to tell them it's not going to hurt their feelings. I'm like, good, go do it. And he will. I mean, like, we do that, and sometimes he'll be like, I don't want to go do that. I'm not hugging them. I don't care. You know, and I'm like, you stay here, I'll go. Because I know he's going to hurt someone, and he's very task-oriented. And it may not hurt them, but it hurts me to think that it might hurt them. Because I'm very people-oriented, you know? And so if you think of those things, then we can really work together as a team, a dynamic team, not just an okay team. I do have these sheets to give you. They're little cheat sheets. I should have given Jill one. I'll have to give. She's probably back there. Isn't she?
She might be back there with Eden.
These are cheat sheets for it's what you can or shouldn't say to each color. So it'll kind of help you with your spouses, probably.
Okay, so what was this?
You just frame this and put it in the bathroom there.
Well, really and truly, we'll start to get it. You know.
Absolutely. This has been good, but painful but good, surgical good.
Surgical good.
And, LED lighting good.
I know, right?
Yeah.